Hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and my amazing co host is.
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey, all right. So we are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool advice and community. We are all about sharing what homeschooling really looks like in the day-to-day application. That includes the fun days, the breakthroughs where you and your kiddo feel 10 feet tall, and yes, even the days where one or more of you end up in tears. Because listen, homeschooling, like most other things we do in life, is a full spectrum. You can't have love without loss. You can't know how sweet an epic win is without also knowing the pain of an unexpected defeat. And yet, so often, the only thing that gets shown is this like sepia toned highlight reel, right? The joyful skipping through a field of daisies version of homeschooling.
Yeah, and it's true. We've had plenty of those days. I have a picture hanging up on the wall in the hallway. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken of my three kids. We were in the Narrows in Zion National Park, which is one of the most incredible slot canyons in the world. And as thrilled as I am that people get out and enjoy the national parks, and the pandemic, I think, really spiked the national parks to even another new level, it means that it's packed all the time in the Narrows, all the time. So the kids and I were walking through there one time, and there was this miraculous tiny little clearing where there were no people around us, which is unheard of. And I was like, I can actually get a decent photo. So I quickly blurted out to my kids, I go, quick, stand against that rock and pretend we're a normal family. And the three of them burst into these ridiculous faces and poses. It was it was just so us, right? Like no planning whatsoever. They just oddball, sarcastic goofiness all came out on a second's notice. I snapped the picture and it hangs in the hallway. I love that picture. So, those days are plentiful. But then one day last week, I cried on my way home from the grocery store because the bags were heavy and I was calling one of my kids to come and help me and he wasn't answering the phone. And I just finally broke down and was like, I can't do this. Mind you, I was also hangry and I was on the worst day of my period. So it was just the perfect storm. But those days exist, right? They're there.
Well, no, that's it. Exactly. What isn't one of those awful days where everything piles on top? It is not murky. Are non-negotiables here at Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. In the homeschool world, where having to sign a statement of faith to join a nature group isn't unheard of, okay? We have our own statement of values here, so you know exactly where we stand. So we believe that abortion is healthcare. We don't care who is peeing in the bathroom stall next to us. Worry about yourself, okay? Sadly, we've reached the point where it's anything but surprising when yet another conservative Christian public figure or community leader is busted for kiddie porn. But sure, yeah, drag story time is totally the issue.
Exactly. Can you hear my eyes rolling as you're saying these things? It's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So let us be clear that we would cross any desert or body of water to protect our children because that's what parents do. No human being is illegal, especially on stolen land. And we're super tired of the people who voted for a convicted felon telling us he's only going after the criminals, or if only they had followed the legal process. Because A, that's not what's happening. If you think it is, you need a new news source. And B, just stop. Because I would swim across any river to protect my children. And you voted for a rapist.
That's the thing. A rapist whose newest hobby seems to be regularly posting about war crimes on his special social media account that he had to create because nobody wanted him on theirs. I don't even know anymore. All right. But anyway, it does feel good to finally say it all out loud and to be in this space where once a week we can come together and say it, because the news just gets worse every freaking day.
Every day. Yeah. Yeah. I've always been loud about the fact that one of the reasons I homeschool is because it wasn't a matter of if, but when there would be a school shooting. And I wasn't about to sacrifice my kids to the Second Amendment and a bunch of NRA terrorists. I would drop my kids off at school and felt like I had to tell them every morning, how much I loved them in case I never saw them again. And it was never enough. My words always fell short. I always felt frustrated that I couldn't get the words out to equal the way I felt, because how can you put that into words? So I can't imagine being a mother in Lebanon or Iran right now and tucking your kids into bed at night or sending them off to school for the day, not knowing if you're ever going to see them again. The media can so easily dehumanize people who live elsewhere, look different, speak a different language, pray differently. But at the end of the day, we're all parents. And I don't see how some parents can be cheering on the destruction of an entire civilization, knowing that those parents want the same future and hold the same bottomless love for their children that you do. It will never make sense to me.
Well, yeah. And all while going on and on about how they're Christians who somehow also think Jesus is portrayed in the Bible as too woke. Like, I don't, the lack of awareness and critical thinking happening in way too many circles right now is so truly hard to comprehend.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if you're here, rest assured, we aren't all about that. And if you have been feeling like a square peg in a round hole in most other homeschool spaces, odds are good that we are your people. Where liberal progressive homeschoolers do exist, and there are more of us than you probably realize. So now, with all of that said, let's talk about today's topic. We are going to be looking at effective ways to leverage online tools in your homeschool life. And honestly, we'll parallel that against some ways we've seen come up online and in groups that aren't terribly effective most of the time. So, look, this is a big topic in the homeschool world. Technology is creeping in. Who are we kidding? It isn't creeping in, it's taking over in so many ways. So, we do have a lot to sift through today, but I'm optimistic that it's going to be a good discussion.
Hmm.
That said, before we really dive in with each of our episodes, we try to do a weekly recap. So, in an effort to be anti influencer and keeping it real about life and parenting and kids and homeschooling and all of that, how has your week been, Megan? Good, bad, ugly?
Busy, busy,
Okay.
busy. We have a bunch of stuff going on, you and I, projects that we were working on that are
Yeah.
pretty big projects that are bouncing back and forth, and just kind of the way we work, where I do a chunk and then pass it to you and you do a chunk and pass it to me. It's kind of this segmented approach where over the weekend I had some sewing projects lined up because you had all the documents, and I was like, "Ah, I'm sewing and I'm having a blast and this is great." And I outlined a painting project that I want to work on. And then Amanda sent all the documents back, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put all of those projects on hold because now it's my turn to work on the documents. So maybe next week I'll get back to them. We shall see. But yeah, so just busy, but all good things. My daughter and I started a 14-day program on the Daily Om app. Are you familiar? It's like all sorts of like, there's yoga and meditation and like different workouts and stuff on there. And I kept getting this ad on Facebook for 14 days to sexy arms. Like
Oh.
what was it? Go sleeveless in 14 days and all this kind of stuff. My arms need a lot more than 14 days. It's not happening. In 14 days, I will still be Googling boleros online. But
Okay, but can I also just say, you have normal woman arms,
right.
okay? You should be empowered to go sleeveless. And I have been struggling with this. I have an aunt who always had these arms that I was like, oh man, I feel so bad for her because she just had this like arm shape that was really unfortunate, right? And I was talking to my mom recently and she was like, oh yeah, she inherited that from your grandma. It's like, it's a genetic thing. And I was like, I have started developing it. I hit later stage perimenopause and it's totally happening to me. There's no good reason for it. And I had stopped wearing a lot of sleeveless things. And just in the last year, I'm like, you know what? Screw this nonsense. No one else gets to decide that I have to overheat in the summer
Yeah.
because they don't like the looks of my arms. I am almost in my late 40s. My arms are just fucking fine. Thank you very much. So feel free to work on your arms and then still wear your sleeveless shirt. There you go. There's my little rant.
Yeah, I know. It's a mix of both. I'm trying from both perspectives. But yeah, 14 days to sexy arms. We're like 6 days in. The first handful of days, we didn't even pick up weights, and already my arms were tired. And I was like, oh, this is not good. But we'll get there. So I think I'll just be doing the program on repeat for like the next 4 or 5 months, but we'll get there. So yeah, that's been that. But I did wear a cardigan, a short sleeve cardigan. But we had an epic beach day yesterday that was so much fun, kind of unplanned. My parents live near the beach and their internet wasn't working. And so the night before, I was like, I'll come in the morning and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, fix your internet, but then we're going to the beach. And I genuinely figured we would just hang for an hour or two. And Astrid came because she had a morning where she didn't have like heavy projects going on or anything like that. And we brought the dog and oh my gosh, we just had the best time ever because we're in between spring break and summer, so it's not crowded. And so Waffles got to run and play ball, and another doodle came down at one point and was playing, so she got to run and play. And we just had the best day. Like it was just super fun. So we will definitely be getting more of those in before the summer craziness starts and it becomes overrun by tourists. And then in theory, my boys are going to Prague tomorrow to play Pokemon for the weekend. When this airs, in theory, they will have just come back. But given the jet fuel shortages in Europe, who knows? From what I can gather from all the different travel groups that I'm in and stuff on Facebook, the cancellations are being done well in advance. It's not like you show up to the airport and you're like racing against the fuel pump. They know how many gallons or whatever they've been allocated for the day, each airline, and they're making strategic decisions. So as long as they can get to and from Prague, that would be great. Like as long as they don't get there and then we get a notification that their flight home was canceled, that'll be good because the bus ride from Prague to Portugal is pretty long. So, we shall see. But yeah, so hopefully they have a fun weekend playing Pokemon and it'll be good. How about you? What's new in your world?
But I feel like I have to keep you posted on the ongoing math saga. So I told everyone listening about how I finally made the executive decision that we were going to trial another math program for at least a month.
Oh, can
And
I interject for a hot second here? Because
yes,
you don't edit episodes and I do. So you told some of this story to everyone last week, but the episode was long. And so the rest of it went to Patreon. So if you've only heard part of the story, in short, Amanda had some math frustration. So continue. And if you want to hear the rest, it's on Patreon.
there you go. I mean, big picture, like all year, we've been talking about it because we transitioned from Beast Academy into the regular Art of Problem Solving math curriculum. And it's bumpy for a lot of people. It has been bumpy for us. I knew that going in, but trying to figure out if we were going to stick with it or move to something else has continued to be an issue. And so the new one that we're trialing has arrived. We haven't even cracked it open yet because of course, I was like, we're never going to get there. And then Kiddo has been working totally independently with AOPS and scoring anywhere from 80 to 100% on all of the practice sets, which was my thing. I was like, we can't get there and I can't keep doing this. And as soon as I was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. I can't. Like, then he was like, duh. So, I mean, of course, because that's just the way life works. Like
Exactly.
this. But this stuff, it makes it so hard to know what's best, like when you're trying to figure things out and like the roller coaster of it, the ups and downs. And yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where math is. That's our big homeschooling update. We did do Disneyland. I talked about how we were going to do Disney. We had a blast. I struggle with PEM. It stands for post-exertional malaise for anyone who doesn't know. And if you have chronic illness and you're listening, you're probably like, yes, I wish more people talked about it. So I'm still attempting to recover from my 15,000 steps at Disney in the
Oof.
heat. It really knocked me on my butt, but the kiddo really enjoyed it. He had some kind of special behind the scenes workshop, something about designing a theme park. Anyway, he did it. He had fun. Then afterwards, we ate and ate and ate some more. If you're curious what we had, you can come check out my personal Instagram pictures and our take on all of it over there, just because people like seeing that kind of stuff. My friends and family are like, oh, did you try the rocket macaroon? Like we did. It's not that exciting. Super cute for a picture, not so tasty. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Disney's not known for its fabulous food, unfortunately.
well, actually, I mean, we had a lot of really good food.
Did
And
you?
maybe, yeah, maybe that's a difference between Disneyland and Disney World because
Maybe.
Disneyland has entire Instagram accounts dedicated to all of the food and eating your way through and all the different drinks and stuff to have and stuff that we can't so easily get here. Like the Mickey Mouse beignets are really tasty, but you don't get
Mm.
beignets very often on the West Coast. So that kind of stuff. But yeah, we had a good time. I think the thing that'll be really interesting to me is if our kiddo pushes to go back anytime soon. So, as SoCal locals, people are always surprised to hear that at 12, he had still never been to Disney. So now that he has been, like, will once be enough, or will he start being like, "Oh, let's go back for this or for that?" The Star Wars area was really cool. There was a lot. I mean, it was pretty amazing, and there was a lot of really interesting stuff in there. So I could see the push for going back sometime soon, but we'll see. But yeah, anyway, we are busy. Like Megan was saying, we have a lot of those projects going on. And then for our family next week, at the time that this airs, next week, we will be taking a family vacation to celebrate our wedding anniversary. It's just a week, but we are all attempting to unplug and disconnect, which means everyone in the family, all three of us, are feeling the pressure to get a bunch of stuff done and just handled so that we can just unplug and not worry about booting up our computers to take care of anything. But generally speaking, things are going well. For as stressed as we are, there haven't been any big meltdowns or blowups. Knock on wood. I wish I
That's a
had a
win.
real wood table that I recorded on. So yeah, hopefully it'll stay that way. Probably
Yeah.
won't, but it'd be great if it did. Right. So updates done. We have tons to talk about today. But before we jump right in, we do have a big announcement to make. Well, for over a year now. If you're on Patreon, you've heard us, then you know we've been working on this book. And in typical homeschool moms unfiltered fashion, what started off as a goal to build a simple how-to ebook for secular and progressive parents thinking about homeschooling or new-ish to homeschooling has grown, to say the least. I'm thinking about shooting Megan, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll let it go until she drags me into yet another completely huge project. And I'm like, what happened to my commitment to work 5 to 10 hours a week, Megan? So, anyway, June 23rd, we are launching our book entitled The Only Homeschool Book You Actually Need, a modern secular guide and interactive workbook to help you create your plan step by step. So, it is going to be big. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of pages big, but it should be a good balance to the like your homeschool Bible kind of books. Definitely give us a follow because we have tons of launch events and giveaways planned in the coming weeks. You can follow us here over on Facebook and Instagram, on Patreon. There's a free tier over there so you can sign up. You don't have to pay, but you can stay in the loop. We are excited to share all about all of the different things we have in store. I'm sure there'll be even more than what we're currently thinking because that's how Megan works. So stay tuned for more details on the book launch. But in the meantime, let's talk about online resources and homeschooling. Now, listen, we both absolutely use online resources, though it'll be no surprise to anyone who listens on the regular that we use them in very different ways. Some of our online resources overlap, some are unique to each of us. So we are not by any means anti online programs. Okay, they're okay, they're good. Not even okay, they're good.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk all the time about the power of outsourcing. If there's a subject that you don't feel qualified to teach, outsource it. We just did an episode about homeschooling through high school recently. And I think by then you're likely outsourcing a whole bunch of stuff because there's probably not a lot of parents who feel confident to teach calculus and chemistry. I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. Or maybe you rock at calculus and chemistry, but the thought of teaching writing or Shakespeare or whatever it falls in that world is equally as terrifying as calculus and chemistry are for me. So outsource that stuff. It's fine.
Well, yeah, exactly. Another great time to outsource is if you're just not stoked about teaching something. Like, I have zero interest in teaching World War II history to the depth that my tween is interested in exploring it. Could I muddle through it? Of course. Am I capable? Sure. But is it going to be the passionate learning experience that he's craving? That's going to be a nope. It just isn't. And so I am happy to outsource that to people who live and breathe that subject matter and people who can match his passion.
Yeah, that's it. We've both outsourced writing to certain degrees, outside feedback and minimizing some of the emotion that can come with honest feedback on writing can be super duper helpful in a subject area that's not as black and white as something like algebra, where this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. Somebody critiquing your writing can sometimes feel a lot more personal.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's just the matter of real life. Tons of homeschool parents and caregivers are working. They're homeschooling multiple kids. They're running a household. They're caring for aging parents. They're solo parenting. They're managing health issues, either their own or a family member's. And there are just only so many hours in a day. So being able to delegate little portions or medium sized portions of your kiddo's education to someone else, totally valid.
Well, that's it. Sanity is a big one. Safety is another big one. We've talked about this before, but it's always worth repeating. If your child is in school and they're not safe, whether that's risk to their mental health or bullying or anything else, and the only way that you can bring them home and keep them safe is to sign them up for an online all in one program, do it. Okay. Just do it and don't feel an ounce of regret, or shame, or guilt, or even just general angst over that decision. Keeping your kiddos safe is always the number one priority.
100%. We started that at the top of the episode. We would do anything to protect our children. And so if that's it, then that's what you're going to do. So we're all about real life advice here. That's what we're going to dive into today. We'll talk about some scenarios for using online tools that might be amazing in your home and for your kiddos. And we'll share some recommendations for balancing on and offline tools. But we're going to talk about what's ideal in our opinions or what's kind of best case scenario. But then there's what you can do. And there are seasons in life, and sometimes you have more spoons than others. And so in any season, you do what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. We are never going to tell you that you have to be perfect 24/7 to successfully homeschool. That would be pretty hypocritical of us since neither of us have figured out how to be perfect just yet. I'm going to be honest, I'm not even trying. I'm aiming for good 80% of the time, okay? So, we're going to focus on how to balance independent online learning and connection. We're going to look at ways to balance structure and flexibility. And again, we're not trying to be perfect, but rather, this ability to make intentional choices around education and learning.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb and bring up something that I consider to be a bit of an elephant in the room when it comes to online programs and homeschooling. And I think in this regard, the pandemic was a turning point when it comes to online learning. So it's super interesting to me because during the pandemic, many kids transitioned to some sort of online learning, whether it was distance learning or asynchronous or on Zoom. And overall, it was a hot mess. If you did it, it was a hot mess. We have a teacher friend who quit teaching forever after that. It was such a disaster for her. Kids were miserable, teachers were miserable, parents were miserable. And on top of that, now it's really interesting because we're seeing the results of that shift in test scores as these kids who've gone back to the classroom are growing and progressing. And the test results are not good. And listen, we've talked before about standardized testing and how they're not always a great measure of all kids, and some kids aren't good test takers, blah, blah, blah. But the trends, you can still look at trends, and the trends are not great. And so some of these kids, it's going to take them years to get caught up from that pandemic learning experience. And they'll do it. We've had these periods in history before where kids were out of school, whether it was during the polio epidemic or during times of war around the world and kids have missed years of school. They make it up, they get there. But the interesting thing is, simultaneously, somehow, there was this shift in the homeschooling world where online platforms like Time for Learning, Mia Academy, and gag when I say it, but Acellus started to surge. And these programs existed before the pandemic, but somehow that pandemic period seemed to really forge this synonymous connection with homeschooling equals sign up for an online learning platform. And I find it so interesting because distance learning was a disaster. So if anything, you would think that logically the opposite would have been true. And yet that hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I find that connection really interesting. And it's an interesting holdover from the pandemic, whether people make the connection or not. We see tons of new homeschoolers where the kiddo's day looks like log in, headphones on, done by noon or done by whatever time the family decides. But I don't know, look, I mean, we get the appeal, right? Parents are burnt out, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed. We are oftentimes in that boat as well. So I do get that it feels like a safe choice, not to mention that it really can help with that fear that you're unqualified to homeschool or that you're doing it all wrong and completely screwing up your kids. But unfortunately, in grown up life, we know that oftentimes when something seems too easy, we're probably missing something, or it's likely to come back and bite us in the ass later. Unfortunately, life just isn't that easy most of the time.
Exactly. I think you're right. I think those are all super common reasons that people sign up for those all in one options. But there's also the incessant marketing to deal
Oh,
with. Some of these programs are incestuous. They have huge marketing budgets and they have these armies of influencers. We've done extensive research into the most common platforms, and it's no surprise that you have been bombarded by these names. We've done reviews on online platforms. You can go check out those episodes in our queues. We have some real thoughts when it comes to programs like Mia, Time for Learning, and Acellus, which are the three most common names, none of which will have you rushing out to sign up for any of them anytime soon. But there are some good ones out there. As far as all-in-one options are concerned, we like Funcation Academy, we like Khan Academy. They are very different from one another, very, very different, but both are solid and ethical choices. Then there are a la carte options. We both use those. We like programs like Athena's Academy and Outschool. We are all about using these programs to support our homeschool, but we stop short of endorsing any of them to be your entire homeschool plan.
yeah. I mean, when it comes to asynchronous programs like Time for Learning, Mia, Acellus, I mean, even Funcation and Khan Academy, there's always a risk of kids slipping into passive learning. So, what does that look like? Honestly, you probably already know. Have you ever done one of those HR trainings, or maybe you've had to do some sort of continuing education training that was online? And you likely start out with reasonably good intentions. And then before you know it, you're just kind of zoning out. You're just hitting next when appropriate to progress the slides or advance the video. Or maybe you're multitasking. Maybe you're checking email and catching up on your social media, or maybe even just playing games on your phone while the video plays because it's boring and you know all of these things. You've had to do it before, or this is not new material. And then the questions come. And the thing is, they want you to get the correct answers. So you can either use deductive reasoning skills to make an educated guess, which is going to work for a lot of these situations, or you read the question and then you can scroll back through the content to find the answers you need. You check the correct bubble and then you just kind of move on. And look, I have no issue with open book reviews and tests. I've talked about it before. I think there's a lot of value to that. But the reality is, this sort of multiple choice online guessing game isn't really an experience that we can describe as deep learning. Without discussion and application and really thinking about how it connects to other things, retention and the ability to apply concepts beyond the immediate lesson, those things tend to be really low.
Yeah. And when you're saying application, we see comments all the time about Mia and their printable PDFs. So some might point to that as application, but this is just one of those instances where we suggest revisiting your why. Why are you homeschooling? What was your vision? What were your goals? Was one of your goals one size fits all education? Was one of your goals busy worksheets? I think for many people, those are things that they would leave school over, not design their homeschool around.
Yeah, but look, I will say I have no problem with online courses and printable worksheets. We absolutely use them in our home. I have 100% recommended Generation Genius for science to many families. And I think the fact that you can print off science text for annotating and note taking, and then also print off a quiz that can totally be used as a worksheet, helps make the curriculum plenty sufficient for elementary and middle school science. But I'm not positive many of us actually think an education devoid of all real person interaction is the most ideal option. In our Homeschool 101 course, we have this specific activity where we have parents outline the things that they're choosing to leave behind when leaving the traditional educational system. And it might sound silly, but it is a really important step because it is so easy to accidentally bring elements from the traditional system that just didn't serve your kids. It didn't work well for your kids. But without even really thinking about it, you accidentally bring it into your homeschool life. So typically, not always, but one of the biggest strengths of homeschooling is this ability to truly customize. And even the online, like all in ones that we like, things like, again, Khan Academy, Funcation, they're still standardized. They can grade work and they can provide you a really easy to read report. But there are online systems. They can't notice when your kiddo is confused or frustrated or just bored. They can't tell in real time by looking at your kid's face. And maybe at some point they will. Maybe you'll be listening to this 10 years down the road and be like, of course they can. They totally read their face and then they pivot. But for right now, they don't pivot based on your kid's personality or how bored they are or their interests. And yes, I know there are also options out there that are adaptive, but I promise we have tried several of them and they still just can't really deliver in this real time way of knowing what the kiddo needs and being able to change to give that to them.
Yeah, the limitations are real for sure. I mean, here's the thing. If this system worked, this idea that you can give a kid a username and a password, a headset, maybe some printed PDFs, and they'll take it from there and they're going to have this magical learning experience and they're going to totally know what they need to know, wouldn't schools be doing that? Teachers are grossly underpaid, as it is, but study hall monitors would cost even less. So I'm envisioning a big room of rows of desks. Every kid is plugged in, and you've got study hall monitors that are there keeping an eye on them, eyes forward, focused, or as focused as you can be staring at a computer screen for hours. I mean, hello, like you said, as adults, we zone out on screens. Underdeveloped frontal lobe, definitely going to be happening there in our kids. But even the school system, which is deeply flawed, we support the fact that there needs to be public schools and teachers should get paid more, et cetera, et cetera. But we also admit that the school system is deeply flawed in its current state. They know kids need connection and engagement to learn. That's why they're not doing this and they're still paying teachers. Not enough, but paying them more than study hall monitors.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing more and more news stories of this exact thing. Yes, there are some AI schools that have moved to this model of mostly AI instruction with more generalized homeroom type teachers or monitors. But there are even more schools that are realizing they made this major investment in making sure every child had a screen, like a Chromebook or a tablet or whatever the case may be. And their scores are worse now than before. And so you're seeing these articles come out about how the wealthiest school districts are moving away from so much screen time in class. And the other thing too is some kids just need more connection and engagement than others. And thinking about kids with learning differences or ADHD or things like that, plenty of kids need more scaffolding, more support, and more just side by side learning than the school system can offer. So, if that's part of your why for homeschooling, extensive use of asynchronous online platforms likely isn't going to be the best fit for you or your kiddo. And again, we are both using online tools. We are not saying you can't use them at all. They can be a really powerful part of your homeschool plan, inherently bad. Like let me rephrase that actually. Okay, so some programs themselves are bad from the bottom up. Foundation, all of it. We wouldn't be touching those with a 10-foot pole. Mia and Acellus, for sure, being two of them. Ethically, they're a hot mess, both in where their profits go and in classroom policies. Like, neither are particularly strong academically either. But not all online programs are bad. We want to be thinking more, this is a tool that supports something specific, and less, this is the thing that will teach my kid everything I need them to learn.
Mhm.
Right? You are the architect of this learning adventure that you're on with your kiddo or your kiddos. Think of online programs and options as you bringing in some extra help, or
Mhm.
maybe hiring a consultant if you're coming from the business world. But you're still the boss. You're still the person responsible for making sure the ship is going in the right direction.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, when you're saying that, it's reminding me at Funcation, for example, parents aren't called parents, they're called educators because that's what they are. It's a subtle change, but it's a very different mind shift when you think about the difference between those two things, which I think is cool. I'm thinking back to what you just said a couple of minutes ago about kids who have learning differences, who are ADHD. There was a post yesterday, actually, in one of the groups asking about Mr. D's for math. And I commented and I was like, I've heard nothing but amazing things about Mr. D's. And so many people have used it. There's no ethical issues with it, all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I'll tell you right now, I have a wildly accelerated math kiddo. And I can't use Mr. D's because of how asynchronous it is. There's not enough connection there for my kiddo where I need a human being there when the frustration point kicks in, because frustration point tips over to nuclear implosion pretty quickly when that happens. So I need somebody there for connection the entire time. So even a solid program like Mr. D's is not a fit for this kiddo. He needs a person as close to side by side as you can get with him because he's taking it online, but they're side by side in Zoom and he can still get that connection piece. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying. But yeah, to your point, bringing in online services for a variety of reasons can be great. It could be to function as a tutor, a supplement, a support system. We mentioned some of the reasons earlier. If you want to outsource something you don't feel comfortable teaching, great. If you're looking for reinforcement, structured skill building that you might lean into, something like multiplication tables or grammar, where you're looking for repetition and practice, where you're looking for repetition to build those skills, great. Even interest-based topics, stuff like civics, art classes, coding classes, amazing. Use those online resources. They're there. They're awesome. It's just a very different approach than using it for everything, for all the core subjects, soup to nuts, 100%.
Well, yeah, right. It's all about like mixing it up. When it comes to subjects your kiddo struggles with, sometimes online is a terrible idea. And sometimes it's just the ticket. If you have a kiddo struggling with math, putting them in an asynchronous online class and hoping they'll just figure it out themselves, it might work depending on where the struggle is. Are they struggling because they don't want to hear you teaching it? Okay, then yeah, maybe online asynchronous is the ticket. But it could also lead to tons of frustration and then going from treading water in math to just drowning. Whereas enrolling them in a live group class or private online tutoring, if you can find a good solution that is within your budget, that might be the perfect solution. Maybe the way you're explaining it just isn't making sense to your kiddo and they need to be taught a different way. They need someone who sees it from a different direction. Maybe the frustration level between the two of you has reached the point of no return. Been there, done that. And you need an outside person to come in with a fresh perspective and just calmly move your kiddo forward from wherever you have stalled out and instill some confidence in them. We talk a lot about intrinsic motivation and things like that. And that is all good. But sometimes kids do need someone from the outside to come in and be like, you're doing amazing. This is great. You're doing spectacular. And they're not like, oh, that's just my mom. She loves me. She has to say I'm doing amazing.
I remember saying that to my mom. Yeah, totally. So that's just it. Not everything across the board typically will work online. Repetition works well online. Things like math drills, spelling practice, review topics. For example, one of my kids recently hopped on Funcation Academy to take some algebra classes. It was a prereq for some other things that he wanted to take, and he figured just a linear A to Z review of all of the concepts in that class would be helpful. And he was able to blow through it without any issues. And yeah, it's a great thing. Use the tools that are available. I think overall, an easy kind of gut check for yourself is, can my kid disengage and still get through this thing? If so, it shouldn't be fully online, or at least not asynchronously fully online, because then there's nobody there to reel them back in sometimes. But can you take those online resources like an asynchronous algebra class or an asynchronous civics class or something like that? Can you have your kiddo take that class and then combine it with hands on activities? And I'm not talking about the printable PDFs from Mia, hands on activities, discussion, real world application. When you can do that, now you're cooking with gas, as my Aunt Fran used to say. She was so cute. She was like 4'10" and walked twice as fast as I did. She was just this little bundle of energy. And anytime she got excited, she'd be like, now we're cooking with gas. So what might that look like in real life? For example, maybe your kiddo watches a science lesson about tectonic plates on something like Funcation or Khan Academy. But then you two get together and you do an experiment. So you're getting hands on. And then you're talking about the results of the experiment, or you're sharing it with other family members who didn't participate in the lesson in the experiment over dinner. And so you've got that teach back mechanism in there. That becomes super powerful then.
Well, yeah. So building that engagement in can make a really big difference in both comprehension and retention. It is totally possible while partnering with asynchronous online platforms like Khan or Funcation or live classes from other platforms like Outschool or Athena's or wherever. This is doable. The key is to stay involved without hovering. Okay. And that's also an important aspect. But that might look like asking questions after the lesson, just generally having a conversation, have them explain back to you what they learned, like, oh, what was today's class about? How did that work? And then be sure that you're spot checking, not micromanaging. That's that hovering piece. If you make them do every lesson twice, it's not going to work. And also, there's no point in doing the online if they have to do every lesson online and again with you. So, spot checking, not micromanaging.
Hmm.
And then, when possible, add in some tangible things. And again, this is not like you have to, for every lesson, we're not saying that, but tangible things like projects, experiments, games, real life connections like, oh, well, what about this thing? Doesn't that kind of remind you of what we saw at the museum last week? Those kinds of things. Again, it doesn't have to be with every lesson, it doesn't have to be every day, but adding them in from time to time just helps keep it alive and fresh. And again, helps with that retention and comprehension.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I would be remiss as the resident unschooler of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered if I didn't just add a little tidbit in there that following their activities and their energy and what they're interested in and what's sparking interest and building on those things is amazing, as long as you don't squash their sparks of interest by making it arduous and ick. So if something is clicking and your kids are having a blast and they're interested in something and they keep talking about it, go deeper in really fun, amazing ways. But if you're on something and it flops and you've kind of ticked that box, pivot to something else. It's totally okay.
All right. So Megan got to throw in her unschooling 2 cents. I'm going to throw in my aggressive academic 2 cents. There are absolutely classes and specific areas of study that I have my kiddo do online, and I do basically nothing to follow up. Online art and typing classes. Tell me you did them. That's enough for me. My kiddo is required to show proof of weekly nonfiction reading comprehension practice. It is a reporting thing given our specific situation right now. I do not care. He does fine with it. It's a reporting thing. We have to be able to show this that he has done it. So yeah, he does it on IXL and I never follow up or check on it. I do not care. He's doing fine with that skill outside. I think the requirement is dumb. He enjoys the IXL lessons because it's other things he wouldn't normally read and yeah. So Fine. I'm not using my spoons to follow up on or ask questions to check for retention on shit that I don't think actually matters. Like we said at the beginning of the show, we're not expecting perfection. We are looking at ways to make the most of our time and the resources we're using.
Hmm.
Okay, so before we wrap up, we have some questions to suggest that might help reflect on your current balance. And we thought we would share some highlights on how we, the two of us, are utilizing online resources now or how we have in the past. But before we jump into that, just a quick reminder we do both offer online coaching. So whether you want to talk about the nuts and bolts of curriculum with me, you want to talk about how you're going to move away from an all online platform or how you're going to supplement, or maybe you want to get a better handle on unschooling and you're like, I want to completely move away from curriculum and online stuff. Or this is the time of year, maybe you need some transcript help. Like, how do I get all of these things on one piece of paper? Go book with Megan. You can totally book super easy using Calendly. It shows our availability, dates, and times. So there's no like guesswork or back and forth. You look at your calendar, you look at ours, you book what works for you, and you'll get a nice little email from us saying, You're confirmed. Please fill out this form. There'll be a link in the show notes as always. And you can also find it on our website, which sometimes, if you're like, you can't find the right show notes, you can look on our website. It's in the header. And look, if you would rather work through a class first, we totally get that. I like to be able to do that, sometimes have a little bit of a better understanding using the cheaper option before I go for the little bit more expensive one. We have an online class for figuring out how to do play-based preschool and kindergarten. We've got a general but very comprehensive Homeschool 101 course. And we also have a secular curriculum and resources course. It's not, this is exactly what you should use, but it's, here are things. If you want this kind of curriculum, you might want to start by looking at these options. If you want this kind of learning environment, you might want to start by looking at these options. You can find all of those links as well, both again in the show notes or for the courses. The easiest place to find them is in our highlight reel on Instagram. All right. So now we're cooking with gas or something. I probably didn't use that in the right context,
You
but
totally did. You channeled Aunt Fran.
all right, there we go. All right. So if you pulled your kid from school and signed them up for Mia because it was brought up 7,429 times in a Facebook group, and yes, we are in those groups too, and we too are sick of seeing it, but we will freely admit their marketing is very effective. We totally get it. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I think I want to try something else, but how do I know how much tweaking or pivoting is necessary? Do I need to do something completely different? Can I just supplement some of it? What am I supposed to do? Some things to consider include number one, how quickly is your kiddo flying through the content? If they are absolutely flying through the content, it's probably not the right amount of challenge. Are they retaining things they learned that same day, maybe a week later, a month later? No one, no kid, no person is going to retain everything that they learned. That's completely unrealistic. But if they're not retaining at least half of what they learned, it's probably not the right format for them. I would also say, what's the vibe? Is there resistance? Do they not want to log on? Or is there avoidance? Can they find a million other things to do before they go log on? What about boredom? Do they just seem like they're not really enjoying themselves? Are they resting their head on their hand for half of the lesson? Or disengagement? Again, not like, are they doodling? Not in an ADHD, I need to be doing multiple things with my hands at once, but like, really they've made an incredibly impressive piece of artwork, but they have no idea what the lesson was about, right? Like, probably not the best fit, even if you do love the art. And then I would also say, how in the loop are you without checking the parent dashboard? Do you know what your kiddo is learning? What skills are they focusing on this week? Which ones are they nailing? Which ones are they having to repeat the review questions many times before they can move on? Where are you in that loop, and how does that impact what you want your homeschooling to look like versus what you've accidentally fallen into?
And again, if you've taken a moment to ponder those questions and your tummy turned into a knot like mine does when I get really stressed and anxious, it's okay. Don't panic. Number one, you can only do the best with what you have at the time. And we are 100% confident you have the best interest of your kids top of mind. No doubt, hands down. Number two, you might not need to blow up your entire system and start from scratch. You can quite likely make small changes to add in more engagement. And number three, we don't suggest you do any of this on your own. If you'd like help figuring out how to make learning more engaging and do so confidently without relying on that safety net of an all-in-one platform, we've got you. This is what we do. Book a coaching session, come to Q&A on Patreon, come chat, come to the neurodivergent homeschooling meeting. Come, we're there. We're there live. You can bring your questions. We've had people bring lists of questions. Totally cool with us. We love lists
Yeah.
of questions. Bring them. It's what we're there for.
That's it. I hardly ever show up to anything without a list of questions. And look, at the end of the day, we aren't encouraging you to homeschool like an Amish parent with no technology, no online support at all. Online can be great,
Mhm.
but we would love to leave you with a few thoughts. So, number one, research the platforms you're considering. They range from amazing to like absolute dumpster fire. Okay. Just because you hear a name 27,000 times in the same comment sections on Facebook posts, it does not make it a good option. It makes it a great marketing scheme.
Yeah.
Uh, we have California primaries happening right now. I'm feeling very similarly with some of those things. Like, oh my gosh, whoever is funding this online campaign for this person needs to stop. I'm so over it. Anyway, number two, engaged learning is typically the goal. But again, look, there are seasons in life. We did an entire episode about homeschooling when the shit hits the fan. If you're in your first trimester and your head is in the toilet all day long, you're not going to be a super engaged homeschooling parent. Like, let's be real. If you're grieving the loss of a family member, you've got other shit to handle. Take the time to grieve guilt free. It is okay. If that means learning is a little bit less than ideal for a few months or for that particular season, again, it's okay, right?
Mhm.
Life happens. It's okay. Number three, go back to your why. We mentioned this throughout the episode. You are capable and you can absolutely do this. You can build the homeschool journey you envisioned. You can talk to us for support where needed. You don't need to be the June Cleaver of the homeschool world. Just do your best to continue to stay engaged in the process. And we've talked about it before, but honestly, if you're here listening to this podcast and involved in our community in any way, shape, or form, you are doing great. That's one of those kind of like, yes, this is an engaged parent. Maybe you have things you want to tweak, you have things you want to improve, but you're on the right path. You're doing great.
Mhm. Yeah. So before we get to our mantra for the week, we thought we would share with you each three ways that we use online platforms as part of our overall homeschool plan. So not an exhaustive list. We would be here a really long time. So for me, it's a lot. I don't know, but probably more than Amanda because they do more curriculum workbook stuff, actual book on paper. And Amanda was very intentional about introducing screens moderately and a little bit later for her kiddo. So probably different. Like we said at the outset, doesn't make my way right, her way wrong, vice versa, whatever. It's all good. So number one, outschool, outschool, outschool. Okay. We've been on outschool since 2017. We use it for everything from social clubs to exploring a new topic or interest to outsourcing entire subjects. And it is fantastic. I have one kiddo who's on there this year about 15 hours a week. Next year, he's going to go down just a smidge, but that's because he's moving to a different format. He's going to be doing just as much work, just a little bit different format. But anyway, outschool, outschool. Outschool, we did a short episode on it at one point. It is a marketplace like Etsy. So I don't want to say anybody can go on there and list classes because there is some background and criteria. They make sure you're not a sexual predator, things like that. But you can go on there and basically run your own tutoring business or video game social club business, whatever it might be. So you need to do your due diligence as a parent. But go listen to that episode. We gave you some tips about how to screen through the class listings, how to use the search filters, all that good stuff. There's a code that you can use, budget 50, all uppercase, all one word, budget, and then the number 50. It gives you a discount. We're like the crappiest influencers in the world because I don't even know what the discount is. I just know it's a coupon code and you can use it. You get some kind of discount when you sign up. If you're new to OutSchool, if you use that code, it's in the show notes. But yeah, this is not a case where we're giving you a code for something we never use. We are using OutSchool all the time in my house. We like asynchronous options as well. I mentioned that one of my kiddo was on Funcation earlier this year to redo a class. We've used Funcation at other seasons. We also love stuff like Skillshare, Craftsy. It doesn't have to be homeschool focused. You can use any of those resources that are out there that exist. Webinars, that's not even on my list, but now I've just added a fourth one. My kids love webinars that they'll sign up for through different organizations. We just did one about elephant rescue in India through an organization that I support in India. So there's all kinds of stuff that's out there. The last one, my third one, although I did kind of slip a fourth one in there, but my third one is Arizona State's Universal Learner Program. This is a great example of how we've combined asynchronous and support in our household. So if you're not familiar, ASU Universal Learner is dual enrollment classes through Arizona State University, and they are, I think, all asynchronous. If there's some live ones out there, I'm not sure about that, but I don't know about them if they do. Some of them are all online where you're watching videos and then the testing or the checkpoint is all multiple choice where there doesn't need to be a lot of human intervention. Other classes have more human intervention if it's writing and you're getting feedback on writing. But either way, you're not showing up to live classes. You're not getting a ton of support the way learners are accustomed to in other environments. So for my kiddo, when he did his first ASU class, it was a fun summer challenge for him because I have an oddball kid who thinks math is a fun summer challenge. And so he did that. But like we talked about before with neurodivergent kids, he's wildly neurodivergent, and an asynchronous class is not going to freaking work. There's no way, shape, or form that he has the skills to be able to chunk out that work on his own or handle frustration smoothly and things like that. So we paired that ASU Universal Learner class with one-on-one tutoring support. The tutor was not there for the course content. It was a college algebra class. He was good with college algebra. He got a 97 in the class. The tutor was there for executive function support, making sure that he stayed on schedule, making sure that he knew how to break the work apart and pace himself, knew how to pace himself for an online test because he'd never done that before, where you have to log in and hold your passport up next to your face so that the computer can verify that you're that person and do that thing, and just kind of preparing him for all of that. And so that was what that was for. And this is somebody that he was already working with for math and executive function skills. So it was a natural thing to have him pair with him for an hour or two a week while he was doing that class, just to build that scaffolding and that support in there. So asynchronous program with support. And it was a perfect match for him. So yeah, I mean, that's just a tidbit. Come chat on Patreon or in coaching. I'm happy to talk to you about online options all day long because we've used so many things. But yeah, how about you? What are your top three, Amanda?
Yeah, so I will say we have done a lot of science online. Now, that works for us because we live somewhere with a more than one science museum, and they offer lots of camps and online classes and virtual programs. And so we have done a lot of in person things that are fun. But my kiddo does want to do regular science. And so we
Hmm.
do it online. We've done everything from watching Emily's Wonder Lab to Mystery Science, Generation Genius, Science Mom. My kiddo watches multiple TED Ed videos every day, and most of them are somehow science related, not always, but often. We personally find most science textbooks, especially the ones geared towards elementary and even middle school, to be way too tedious and boring. And so we have leaned into keeping science fun. And for us, that meant mostly asynchronous videos and resources. We also use OutSchool, like you had mentioned. We've used it for a lot of different things. My kiddo likes taking live classes there. He does Spanish. It's not in my wheelhouse at all. And so he's able to take these really small group classes. He has a one that's just talking, and they just talk for half an hour once a week in Spanish, and then another one that's once a week from the same organization where they actually have lessons and they learn things, but it's small group, like no more than 5 kids. So they're all really getting practice. He also does creative writing. With creative writing, I hadn't really been focusing on it. I was doing much more academic writing type stuff, but he wanted to do some with creative writing. And so we used Jackson Pierce. She was on our podcast at the very, very beginning. She had this really fun energy. And I thought, well, let me just see. My kiddo absolutely loves them. Right.
Hmm.
But all of the classes that we've done on OutSchool, they work and we keep going back because they have been very engaging and he's really enjoyed himself. And that's enough for me right now. We aren't doing any of our core subjects on OutSchool. I don't envision a world where we do, but maybe that changes, right? For now, it's just a place my kiddo enjoys meeting other kids and practicing specific skills that are not core subject for us. And then I would say the third kind of big use for us is the just wide variety of online resources for things when my kiddo and I reach the end of our rope.
Yeah.
So, for example, like he does loads better with in depth novel studies and reading comprehension when it's taught by someone else. We don't have to work quite so much on reading comprehension now, but when he was younger, we're talking like second, third grade, he really struggled with how he was supposed to even tackle it. And I really struggled with being like, I know you know this. Like, how can you not figure out how to do this simple worksheet? Like, talking through these answers with me. It was like, you're killing me, Smalls. Like, what is happening here? And so, look, I just found an online provider who was like, I totally do this. I do this every week. And they had all of the language for helping a second grader. I didn't know how to help a second grader make the connections that he needed to be able to make. And the same with novel studies. He did easier ones when he was younger. He does some adult level ones now. He loves that conversation and that connection. We just like reading very different books. And so I'm happy that I don't have to read all of the books that he reads. But, when he's struggling with something, even like typing, I was like, for the love of God, there's like a home row that you're supposed to keep your fingers on. Like, just, and like, and he doesn't work that way. His brain doesn't work that way. So, you know what? Outsource the typing, do it online. Like, here's a program. Are you getting faster? Yes, that's all that matters to me. Like, that you can type reasonably quickly and do what you need to do. Another example, he prefers the first round of math instruction to come from someone else. So we have done a lot of different types, but asynchronous math, where he gets an initial short lecture, he does some reading, he might do a couple online practice problems. And then if he's struggling with something or he needs to do really like a step by step walkthrough, he would like me to do that and to practice it a little bit more if it's needed. So
Hmm.
again, there online works really well for us in that way. But we also use it more than just that. Just like Megan, we're using it in lots of different ways, but it's not the only thing. We definitely do. We use textbooks for lots of different things because we are a curriculum home. We're
Hmm.
the aggressive academic homeschoolers. That's how we do it. And again, that's the point. There are lots of ways to do this. There are lots of ways to do it well. We would just really challenge you to think about how you can use it as a tool, as a resource, not as your whole homeschooling journey.
Hmm.
Right. So, with that said, I think you've listened to us long enough today. Hopefully, you are going to go out there and be like, I have some ideas, and your kid is going to embrace at least half of them. Because let's be real, they're not going to embrace everything you come to the table with.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Right? But with that, we have a mantra to end the episode because we like to end each episode with just a little bit of food for thought. So, would you like to read our mantra for the day, Megan?
Sure. Our mantra is finishing lessons isn't the same as understanding them. Real learning happens when kids are engaged, supported, and able to connect what they're doing to the world around them. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
how you use the tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all
Always,
good
right?
stuff. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, with that, we will wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Happy homeschooling, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, have a great one.